Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. I'm here for Poppy Stamps today, and in this video I want to show you 5 different ways to embellish or decorate small die cuts. So take a look at what I used for this card. I have several die sets. I have the Halo Hello from Poppy Stamps. These are the County Fair buttons. Those County Fair buttons, you cut them all out together. And this is the jar collection. These ones you snip apart with your wire snips. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to use this largest mason jar, and I'm going to fill it up with die cut buttons, and those are the buttons that I'm going to embellish. So I did want to show you this Halo Hello cuts 2 different. It cuts the outside sort of shadow or halo, and then it also cuts the fine sentiment in the middle. And I couldn't get my wire snips to get in between the two, so I ended up using my Tim Holtz scissors. And you can do that if you need to cut apart your dies. So the first way to embellish your die cuts is by paper piecing. And paper piecing is a lot of fun, especially if you're just using 2 pieces like this. So I die cut the acetate, and I've also die cut a silver foil cardstock. So I'm going to cut off the mason jar lid from the silver foil cardstock and adhere it onto the acetate and create a mason jar that looks very realistic. So I'm just using some tape runner to adhere that little piece of foiled cardstock to the top of the acetate die cut jar. The second way is to use dimensional shine like Glossy Accents. So I've die cut the County Fair buttons out of green cardstock and blue cardstock, and I'm just going to apply a layer of Glossy Accents to a couple of the buttons, being sure not to cover those buttonholes or I'm gonna end up gluing it down to my work surface there. So I am just going around, and I'm not doing a super thick coating because I really want to get this card going, and I don't want it to take forever to have the Glossy Accents to dry. So the thicker you put the Glossy Accents down, the longer you're going to have to let it dry, and the thinner you'll obviously have less time of dry time. The third way to embellish die cuts is to add shimmer, and there are many different glitter or shimmer markers on the market. I'm using Spectrum Noir in the clear shine, and you can see when I lift up the die cut that there is tons of translucent shine and definitely some sparkle and glitter on there too. And this is nice because it's not messy, it's really easy to do. The fourth way is to add inked edges, and I like using the Tim Holtz mini round blenders for this. You could wipe your die cuts right on your ink pads there. I find that you get a softer look that has more of a look of dimension when you use a mini round blender like this. And the great thing about this is, again, it's another quick and easy technique, but it does add a really nice effect to those buttons, and I'll show you in a second how they look compared to the regular cardstock die cut buttons. So I'm using a coordinating ink color here, and you can see that it's the same turquoise sea ink color as the cardstock, and it just adds a nice touch of sort of depth to those buttons. The fifth way to embellish them is by stamping on die cuts. And I have the Studio Blotter stamp set from Poppy Stamps, which has some patterns to it, and I'm using the smallest patterns, the dots, and then at the end I'll use the hexagons there. I'm going to use some black ink here, but you could use any color ink. You can use any color cardstock and kind of make these your own. So this could be even, rainbow colors of ink on top of white buttons. It could be the sky's the limit there. So I really like the way that takes those die cuts and gives them a complete new look and twist. So I've just gone in a couple of times with these stamps just to make sure that I have my buttons covered. And for a bonus tip for embellishing or changing the look of your die cuts, my favorite way to do that with sentiments is to stack your die cuts. So I have 3 different hello dies cut out from that big Halo Hello. And my tip for this is if you're using a specialty cardstock like glitter cardstock or foil cardstock for the die cut, just cut out white cardstock for the 2 layers underneath. I like to do at least 3 layers to really get some dimension, but obviously you could do as many as you want. You could get it even more popped up, 4 layers, 5 layers, whatever it takes. But to just cut the one out of the gold foil cardstock, that's going to save you a lot of cardstock, because honestly the side of the gold foil is white anyway. So you might as well just use your white cardstock for the bottom layers. And then I like to use the Ranger Multimedia Matte adhesive for this, so that if any of the adhesives kind of squishes out on the sides there, it's going to be matte and you won't see it anyway. So once those are all adhered together, then I am ready to put together my card with my die cuts. So I've cut the largest mason jar out of the front of a card panel, and I'm going to adhere some acetate to the back of that panel. Just use some tape runner to adhere it down. You can see that the tape runner, you can't really see the adhesive that much, so I'm not that concerned about it. And now I'm going to fill that jar window with some of our Embellish die cuts, and I'm just going to have a mix. I'm going to have some of the glossy ones, the shimmery ones, the stamped ones, the inked edges, the works. And that is just going to kind of give it a very playful, fun look. And I'm just going to make sure there are buttons everywhere inside this mason jar so it looks like it's filled with those buttons. Now I'm going to take my paper pieced mason jar with the nice foil lid there, and I'm just going to put a tiny little line of adhesive. I'm going to use the tape runner on the lid because you won't see it. I'm going to use a tiny little line of Ranger Multimedia Matte all around the outside. I want this to stay put, so I want to use a really strong adhesive like that. I don't want to be able to see it, and I'm hopeful that once it dries you really won't see it, at least on the edge like that. And I'm just going to place it right into that die cut opening there. So it's almost like a die cut inlay, and that creates our jar. I'm going to place a heavy acrylic block on top to keep it down while it dries, and then I'm going to add the adhesive, the same Ranger Multimedia Matte, on the back of our stacked die cut hello there. And once I do that, I'll be able to lift up that acrylic block, and the mason jar will have adhered enough, dried enough, that I'll be able to then add my sentiment there. So I'm just going along making sure that there's a little bit on all the areas of this sentiment. Because it is long and scripty, I want to make sure it stays stuck down on my card even if I put it through the mail. So now I'm going to place it down, and I like how it hangs off the left and the right side of the jar there, and the jar is like a window to the inside of the card, and I think that's just so much fun. So I'm going to leave my acrylic block on for a little bit, and just until that die cut stays put, and then I'm going to add some Nuvo Jewel drops in the light green so that I can have some dimension on the outside of that sentiment as well. And that pretty much completes my card. Those will try translucent and will look really pretty with the jar window. So I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. If you're curious about the dies and stamps that I use, they're linked all down below. And I hope you'll give some of these techniques and tips a try the next time you are embellishing your die cuts. Thanks again for stopping by.